Hey guys, we're back with the next episode of Sryth, our fantasy text-based RPG. Um, we're finishing Proving Grounds 5, which is the Silver Press scenarios. We just killed our leader in Rindelwell. We didn't mean to. Our mind was overtaken. I don't know why we have the Eye of Anger if it didn't do any good. So hopefully this episode finishes these scenarios. There's 3 more left, but they could be very long or they could be pretty short. So let's get into it and see how it goes. Thanks so much for joining me and hanging out. Let's go. Lair Shadow. I guess Halan's hit me on the back of the head. Your eyes spring open and almost immediately you're aware of the manacles that bind your hands and feet to a heavy chain that extends from the cold stone wall behind you. A pale yellow light dimly illuminates the long, broad corridor at the end of which you are chained. As you stare down at the pale grey robe you're wearing, you come to a horrifying realization all your equipment is gone. Suddenly, the thought of Rindelwell's death returns to you, but a brief moment of overpowering grief is quickly replaced by an overwhelming rage and cruel pride. You're only distraught by the fact that you didn't also kill Halan. You've begun to attempt to examine the manacles that bind your hands and feet to the heavy chain when a patch of gloom moves away from the wall and comes to rest on the floor before you. A pool of shadow at your feet begins to ripple. 2 thin arms of shadow extend out of the wreathing pool of gloom at your feet and pass over the manacles that bind your hands and feet as the shadows retreat. Your bonds open and drop to the floor. Free from the chains but extremely weak, you lean up against the wall and close your eyes. Stabbing pain suddenly tears into your mind as icy fingers probe to the edge of your psyche. The pain rapidly subsides, but you're feeling dazed and drained, and you slump down against the wall. A brief moment of clarity from the episode, and it's during these 15 seconds that you come to a horrific realization. You're still firmly under the mind control of Madraxa. Horror gives way to unfettered rage as your own thoughts give way to the overpowering desire to find your master and do his bidding. You swiftly regain your feet. You're standing at the southern end of the broad corridor that stretches out of the site to the north. The manacles on heavy chain and once bound you to the wall lie on the floor here. Pale yellow light dimly illuminates your surroundings. North it is. Your progression along the corridor comes to an abrupt halt when you encounter a short, cloaked, hooded figure standing in the middle of the passage ahead. The figure casts off its hood and find yourself face to face with the sandy-haired lad you met in the road in Talinas, who was later revealed to be Nerith himself. Suddenly the young lad is gone. In his place stands a tall, gaunt master of shadow magic, his sunken face and pale skin suggestive of his extremely fragile state. You will not, but Nerith never finishes his spoken thought, with rage welling up within every fibre of your being. Leap forward and strike his crippling blow as he feebly throws up his hands in defense. The savage blow sends Nerith sprawling to the floor. You step forward to prod him with your foot to confirm that he's indeed dead, but the moment his body shimmers and disappears, the illusion has been dispelled. Allison turned to me. She was a small voice from behind you. Spin around, despite yourself staring at the glowing heart of the Eye of Angora, clutched tightly in the small hand of the sandy-haired lad. You strike out at the boy, attempting to knock the gem from his hand, but he leaps nimbly back beyond the range of your blow and thrusts out a large glittering emerald in your direction. Your master is no more, he cries, the boyish tone now placed by a raspy voice from Nerith. An intense green light explodes out of the eye and washes over you. I have my own eye. Why doesn't it not work on myself? A wave of emotion floods into your mind, and for a moment it feels as if your head is about to explode. You sink to your knees and cry of anguish. The thoughts of both savages ring collide, culminating in defeating deafening roar that leaves you drained and breathless on the cold stone floor of the corridor. As quickly as it began, the storm that rages in your head subsides and you find yourself being held up to your feet by Nerith, the master shadow mage, eyes you cautiously for a moment and smiles. There be at least this bit of light in what is so far the blackest hour. Our hope now lies with you, Allison. In many ways, it always has. Nerith places the eye on the floor and it is promptly gathered up by the writhing shadows and draws back in the gleam where it disappeared from sight. It must be returned, lest your former master miss his newest treasure. The dragon's master of shadow magic is indeed great, though timid by his insolence. He believes he's come to control the shadows, and while they give the appearance of serving his will, they know no master. To know and remember this is perhaps the greatest of all secrets the power shrouds. Those who believe they command the shadows are doomed to be commanded by them. And sudden, overwhelming sense of grief comes over you as your mind returns to a horrible events in the temple courtyard, where you, by in her own hand, Rendell met his death. As if he had read your thoughts and senses a sudden bout of anguish at assail you, Nero tells you that you threat over your companions. Rendell and Alan both live, Allison, he says, though for how much longer I cannot say. How they escaped death by your hand, fully guided by the great dragon, is unknown to me. They are now in the claws of the beast, their spirits slowly being broken, and their formidable powers drained into the pit of Mandrake's black soul. He will soon be a foe that none can hope to contend with. While you are overjoyed to learn that somehow Rendell was spared from death at your hands in its temple courtyard, your elation by the knowledge that your companion is now in the clutches of Mandraxa. Was not such a grim spectre dash all hope, said Sryth, for all the armies of the known world will stand no better chance of defeating the beast than you do. Here alone in this corridor, at the very threshold of his temple lair, now begins the most perilous part of this business. Sryth tells you that, in speaking with the shadows, he discovered that your confiscated equipment lies not far from here. Mandraxa will undoubtedly learn of your defection before long, he says gravely. You will certainly need all that you can bring to bear against the dragon's wrath when it descends upon you. The horror that will move through these passages to let your end will be likely nothing you ever known. Your Excellency, if he knows the exact location you're missing, and he shakes his head in response. The shadows are strange here, he said, his voice trailing away, betraying his weakened state. I am still able to speak with him, but receive only taxes of information I seek. I hope I shall again see you. Sryth, a faint smile creasing the gaunt, rigid lines of his face, but greater than I hope and pray for your victory, for it must come at all costs. You ask Sryth what more he can tell you about the peril you're likely to walk into, but he says there is little else he can impart to you about about the dangers that lie ahead. My power is all but gone, he says. He begins to fade from view. I do not think I will have the strength to return here, but it is of little consequence, for this fight is no longer mine. Your friends are stronger than you know, Allison, and they cannot hope to hold out forever. You must make haste. I'm about to speak when Sryth, now almost completely faded, waves his right hand and three objects at your feet. And a faint chorus of whispers echoes through your mind in the shadow of magic. The master of shadow magic vanishes. You reach down and pick up three items he's left for you. This is better for me. On the corridor, you silently vow to do what you can here and now, even at the cost of your own life, to put it into Mandrax's malevolent designs and to rescue your companions. Indeed, they are still alive from beneath his deathly shadow. Both hope and doubt clouding your thoughts, you check over your meager equipment. How did Sryth get part of the eye? I had an eye, Rendell had an eye, Halan had an eye, and old Trail Talk had an eye. Where did oh boy get one? Both hope and doubt clouding your thoughts, you check over the meager equipment and set off cautiously along the corridor. Sound of heavy footfalls from ahead sends your pulse racing. With no place to hide in the dimly lit passage, you steel yourself to face whatever is about to appear out of the gloom. And only moments later, a massive, black-armored, one-eyed ogre steps into view. A hulking, snarling creature glares at you. He moves past, but makes no move to impede or assault you. You suddenly realize that other must believe you to be still in league with his master, recalling the pumping of your mind while you were chained to the wall only a few minutes ago. You cannot help but wonder what will happen if and when it's discovered you're no longer in league with the great dragon. Pushing the grim thought from you, you turn to watch it over as it continues on the corridor before quickly setting off on your way. Sound of movement along the corridor ahead freezes you in your track. A pair of masked men, the same sort you encountered in Tread Thick on the road. Selena stepped into view out of the gloom. The two men spot you and move swiftly in your direction. As two men rows at a second the pace regard you, a quick nod, and the pair continue to move out of sight on the passage. A sudden unpleasant sensation of the washing over your nasty fingers tears into your mind. You struggle to fend off a powerful mind probe that is prying into your psyche. It takes every last ounce of your mental fortitude to. You need to learn occlumency, my guy. And the effort leaves you feeling drained. More masked men. Let's keep going north. You're just gonna have to keep going pass and fending off my probes. Small mass men. More mass men. I mean, this is gonna be my stuff down here. Quarter you in falling up and smaller and center stands secure 3 skeletons. The tree of undead are basically pouring over large. I was quickly heaping floors in the beast. I mean, attack. Attack! How many are there? Oh, I thought I was doing all 3 at the same time. I think my stuff's sitting here. Looking over equipment. Thankfully discovered that all your missing equipment here. Thank you. Waste no time. Re-equip yourself. That's right. You check over your reacquired item. You know, strangely that items near quite a few are gone. Quick sense of the rest, such as the rest of the small room, reveals nothing of interest. About to leave on 2 black armor, so we stomp into the chamber. I still think I'm good. If I get my stuff back. Why is my SP so low still? Heal, please. Alright, I think this is just gonna be more of these attacks. So I'm just gonna head all the way north. More mass men, more mass men, more mind attacks. Passage ends abruptly in the base of a set of wide stairs that ascend to an ornate arch. You're halfway up the short flight of steps when the tall blue-skinned figure passes beneath the arch and begins to descend the stairs. 4 long yellow horns protrude from the top of the being skull, and upon its back is folded a pair of leathery black wings. You've no doubt the hideous creature making its way down to you in the stairs is a demon, hailing from the infernal realm deep in the Nevernes. The winged being turns and regards you with icy stare for continuing down and disappearing around the passage at the base of the steps. I mean, go on in. Pass beneath the ornate arch and step cautiously into the cavernous, domed chamber. Tall orange flames reach out of deep stone bowls set in regular intervals along the base of the walls, filling the chamber with hushed, flickering light. Strange shadows driven by flames dance widely across the smooth stone walls. However, it is not the shadows to which your eyes are drawn. Across the chamber stand 2 struggling figures, each encased in several bands of lightning. Your heart soars as, even at the considerable distance, such a dim light, you clearly make out the faces of Rindor and Halan. The sudden movement just beyond 2 companions sends the pulse racing. In the deep gloom in the far corner of the chamber beyond the light cast by fireballs along. I mean, why am I locked up if this is his lair and they're locked up? A long writhing serpent-like shadow begins to take shape. You watch in horror as the shadow slowly transforms into that of a great horned dragon against the wall opposite you. Strong reptilian odor fills the air, and other dragon shadows Madrax takes form in the flesh. In a matter of moments, the shadow has disappeared, leaving it in its wake a large and most fear-inspiring creature you've ever seen. The great shadow dragon, its ancient scales strong in the plates of steel, its strength greater than the largest of giants, lowers its horned head and closely examines the lightning encased bodies of the captive companions. Suddenly, the bands of lightning that surround both Rindor and Halan disappear, and the 2 companions slump to the floor of the chamber, where they remain motionless. Everything you've seen seems to indicate that Madrax is finishing dreaming of the power, and that what precious little time remains is fast running out. Your eyes are suddenly drawn to the faint greenish glow that stabs through the shadows of the far corner of the white chamber, the eye of Ungor, as you hurriedly contemplate how you must reach the eye, or if whether or not this instant would help somehow help to improve your lot. A sinister but familiar voice from behind makes your blood run cold. Welcome back, friend. Having found Trail Talk 70 inches by which you entered the room, a wild look spreads across his face as his hand snaps to the hilt of his sword. Retraction, whose eyes are now also feast upon your scratches, while his fist and jaws unleashes a deafening roar that shakes the dome chamber. For a moment, it seems the dome itself might come crashing down upon you. I can but guess those meddling hands help you get this far. Rumbles the sinister, resonating voice of the Shadow Dragon. It draws itself up to its full towering height, the tips of its horns nearly brushing the ceiling of the dome. I no longer have need of these two living champions. Kill it, Trail Talk. You wish to retain your place, kill her and present me our head. His master's nightmarish command echoes off the wall and dome chamber. Trail Talk face twists in a hideous snare, and he draws his broad, glittering blade. Thin tines of blue lightning sprout from his metal wrist and entwine about its tightly clenched left hand. Thrasher roars and beats his master tail against the stone, and just so full, disturbing a thick layer of dust that rises to the air throughout the chamber. With your pulse racing, you square yourself to Trail Talk and firmly plant your feet as you bravely prepare to engage the dragon's most fearsome minion for what appears to be the last time. Trail Talk mutters something that steps threatening toward you, and yet another of Madrasha's roars sends a violent tremor through the chamber. As you lower your gaze to meet the cold hard stare of your advancing foe, your heart nearly skips a beat, and the gnawing sense of despair that dogs your every step in this passage. That passage momentarily departs in rapid succession. Trail Talk has twice winked with his left eye. Oh man. Trail Talk's on our side still. Alright, we'll do the next one. Trail Talk takes 2 steps towards you and thrusts of his right hand. The shadow of his arm takes on the life of its own, broadening and lengthening as it surges forward and wraps itself around you, binding your arms tightly to the sides of your torso. Preparing to ease, the master shadow mage raises his arm and you are lifted into the air. He makes rapid motion with his hand and you're hurled across the chamber. You'll strike this wall, but much your sound blow could easily kill you, only serves to drive the wind from your lungs. As you slump down to the base of the wall, still bound by Trail Talk's extinguished hand, you sense that he's not attempting to kill you, but he's taking great pains to make it seem that he is. Trail Talk again strides out to you as another upward gesture. Roar shakes the chamber. A small bits of stone plummet from the grave, down from above, breaking into jagged fragments. Then you hit the floor. Again, Trail Talk raises his arm, and you hoist the air, hurled across the chamber with great force. You slam to a distant wall, but like before, the potentially fatal blow does little more than expel breath from your lungs. Once again, something slumped down the base of the wall as a shadow of Trail Talk's arm tightens his grip around your torso. Rex rolls again, signaling his approval, and strikes to the floor with a massive tail, sending another shower of rock and dust down the chamber. The size of a chunk of stone lands only a few feet from you, reminding you that even in the midst of apparent charade, you remain in considerable danger. Trail Talk moves up and stands over you. He again raises his arm, and his shadow lifts you off the floor and hurls you to the right, straight into the base of the tall arch of stone that support the massive dome, and the heap in the base of the arch. As Trail Talk slowly makes his way across the chamber toward you, your gaze is drawn to something that leaning resting on the wall only a few yards from where you lie. Your pulse races, a faint but familiar green glow stabs at the shadow. Eye of Angor. Suddenly reaches behind Trail Talk's taxing fear. You will doubt he is purposely patient. You close the gym wall, cleverly attempting to disguise his motives as belonging from attack, much to the apparent delight of the wicked dragon. You immediately realize that you must somehow retrieve the eye, which leaves you wondering why Trail Talk has yet to release his shadow. As yet another of Madrax's deafening roar shakes the dome chamber, your mind races to arrive at a way that you can somehow obtain the eye, which sit no more than 20 yards away. Suddenly, however, the green glow disappears and you gasp as your eyes fall upon the window, striding up to you out of the shadows, his nailed fist clutching the large glowing emerald. Window turns and hurls the eye into distinctly in the corner of the shadow where it disappears from view. He then returns his gaze and grins. You look upon me with the eyes of the one who has been betrayed. I hope you do not forget your own betrayal in the courtyard, Allison. It was the master himself whose magic spared me of your hands, and I am eternally grateful to him for it. You were the only betrayer here. Lon and Trail Talk both stride up and stand next to Window. All three there you derisively. Your mind raises and your pulse quickens. The prospect of having to face this is not a pleasant one. Despite Trail Talk's apparent complacency, you remain at least somewhat hopeful of the theory regarding his true allegiance. Then thoughts quickly driven through your mind and the great shadow dragon turns and starts across the chamber towards you. As it approaches, a startling rapid charge comes over him. You stare wide-eyed as Madrax halts only 20 yards from you and properly melts into a white pool of shadow. Moments later, out of a puddle of gloom rises a tall man in flowing silver robes. The man's face is hideously disfigured, with nearly every feature either grossly exaggerated or nightmarishly distorted. 4 long white horns extend out of the top of his head, partially concealing his ghoulish visage. A pair of long, pale blue, using tentacles extend out of the sleeves of his robes, each writhing out wildly. And from the lower jaw of his broad but misshapen mouth there extends a pair of jagged yellow teeth, and in the center of his face, sunk deep into the pasty skin, are two dull black eyes. The horrid being steps forward, and Windu, Halan, and Sherlock swiftly part to allow him to pass through their ranks. As he proceeds past them, they each drop to their knees and bow their heads. The robe being draws up within a few yards of you and smiles. "You need not fear me any longer," he says, his soft, gentle voice in stark contrast to his ghastly appearance. "I only seek to welcome my master's new champion into the fold." He boldly demanded that Madraxa reveal his true self and release the hold he has on the companions. In response, the silver robe being sneers. "Madraxa," he says, scowling. "There's no longer any Madraxa. Such was the name of the scaled fortress that long served me well, but that is no further need. The pitiful beast, who scarcely remember its own name. Its torment has been great these many centuries since I first stole into its heart. And the very same day my shadow pierced the souls of humans who raided the lair of its kin. Thoughts turn as you wonder if you should believe anything this hideous being has said." Their companions remained kneeling as their heads solemnly bowed. "Hatred and fear thrived in that icy lair," hissed the robe being, his tone becoming increasingly shrill and sinister. "None were spared my guiding hand that day. Neither have they been spared in it as the many centuries since. Do not think that meeting between Luadnir and Nirith was mere chance. For long has Nirith tried to escape my shadow, and carried me into this world, and he fled his own, seeking refuge from me, but I was already with him, a dark shadow in his heart. He's the first of the great champions I held from Master, and a pity, though, the fool's path he's followed since." Horror engulfs you as you realize that the silver robe being before you, which Halan, Rendell, and Sherlock knew in reverence, is an evil beyond anything you could possibly imagine, unwittingly brought into this world centuries ago by Nirith. There is no telling how many hearts and minds have played host to this malevolent creature since his arrival. You're now certain that you're in the presence of a demon lord, a powerful servant of the very demon himself. Based on what this being has just told you, you also sense that he's responsible for having bestowed shadow magic upon Nirith, who in turn imparted his knowledge to Sherlock, Rendell, and Halan, and you. "A demon lord," said the robe being, obviously having read your thought. "Yes, a demon, what you might see fit to call me, though I go by no such name. I go by no name at all. I serve only the Master, and it's his will you shall soon freely submit yourself, as is expected of his next and greatest champion." "Me?" The demon lord's tentacles wave about wildly, weaving a dizzying pattern in the air before him. Without warning, a flaming sphere appears and hovers directly before him. The center of the spear darkens, and you suddenly become aware of an image taking form in its inky core. "Only one has ever openly defied the will of the Master," this is the demon lord. "You will now see what has at long last become of him." The image at the center of the flaming spear comes into focus and begins to move. This haunting and disturbing sight, one that fills you simultaneously with anger and pity. Chained in a thick slab vine, suspended above a pit of black flames, is a frail, battered body of Nirith. There appears to be no time left in him, as both his wrists hang limply in the manacles that bind his arms to the slab. Rendell, Halan, and Sherlock raise their heads and stare at the scene unfolding within the orb. "Anger? Pity for the wretch is understood, but your anger is misdirected," growled the demon lord. "Your anger is to be for the fool who deserves your pity. A grand gift was presented to him. He had but to take it, to claim what was his, and yet you now see the price of his unbridled arrogance and his stubborn defiance. The same gift will be offered to you, I trust. You will have wisdom enough to graciously accept it." From beneath his silver robe, the horned demon draws an ornate iron scepter, which is fitted with a glittering black gem. A deep sense of dread fills you as you behold the device now clutched in his barbed tentacle. "Now," grumbles the demon, his voice deeper in an utterance is far more sinister than any yet, "I shall crown our master's champion." The demon lord begins to raise the iron scepter, and when a sudden but brief look of horror passes across his already grotesquely disfigured face, you realize as you struggle desperately to free yourself from the grip of Sherlock's shadow, the demon lord is having difficulty raising the scepter. Your eyes fall upon the ornate gem-tipped iron rod at you. Immediately spots of broad armed shadow wrapped around its tentacle. The horned demon scowls in turn, his daring gaze upon Trailtop, a traitor to the very end. Your fate is now sealed. Trailtop leaps to his feet and attempts to thrust his hand out toward the demon, but before he can complete an action, the orm of shadow erupts from the gem. The tip of the demon lord's scepter and envelops him. As Trailtop struggles to free himself from the shadowy sphere, the demon snarls and raises the scepter. It is at that very moment you suddenly realize you're no longer bound by Trailtop's shadow. You're about to leap to your feet when a pair of shadow shriek around his slither between the demon lord and his helpless prey. The two links in the shadow arrive at your feet and your heart leaps. As from out of the fabric gloom, there suddenly appears a faint green light. Instantly, you plunge your hand toward the green light and close your hand around the eye of Angor. The two shadows retreat slightly as you withdraw your hand, a large emerald knife clutched tightly in your fist. How did it become one thing again? Can we talk about that? The green glow of the eye seeping through your fingers does not go unnoticed. The trinket promises only death, snarls the demon lord as he turns his face to his eyes, resting uneasily on the emerald now in your possession. Use it as you will, though. It is of no consequence now. Your allegiances lie elsewhere, Allison. The two shadows that deliver you gem rapidly melt into a single pool of gloom before the demon lord. The hideous creature falls back as two large shapes rise in the pool and rapidly form. The pulse quickens as a Driscoll Kree and swiftly materialize before the rogue demon. Both men, their sword in hand, unleash a furious battle cry and lost themselves at their horn foe, but the fight is over almost before it begins. A pair of savage blows instantly topples the two warriors, knocking their swords from their hands and leaving them sprawled on the cold stone floor. Rindelwald and unarmed springs to their feet and move towards you. Do Rindelwald since I killed him last time. With your fingers closed tightly around the emerald, you dust the eye of Angora toward Rindelwald. Its fasted surface shimmers brightly as a faint greenish glow wells up within the heart of the gem. A brilliant wave of green light washes over Rindelwald, and the cruel expression on his face instantly softens. Suddenly his eyes close and he slumps to the floor. Only a moment later, his eyes spring open and he smiles repeatedly. The demon lord howls with rage and holds up his iron scepter. The black gem fits on the top of the scepter glows brightly. Oh my gosh. The demon lord glides backwards nearly 10 feet and holds up the ornate iron scepter. The glittering black gem affixed to his tip suddenly turns a brilliant shade of crimson. Loham fills the dome chamber. Suddenly the eye of Angora with fury. You spun to your left to see what becomes of the eye and discover that Rendrewal is now on his feet, clutching his right hand, standing before Alana. A bright green wave of green light washes over Alana, and the cruel expression on her face melts away to reveal a soft, more lucid demeanor. The demon's long possession of her is ended. The hum that fills the air rises at pitch, and the tentacle demon slides back further across the floor as a dozen fire-rimmed portals open silently along the walls of the chamber. Let our massive new champion prove our worth. This is the demon as the unmistakable and unnerving sound of flapping dozens of large leathery wings soar out of the fiery gates. The knife of death, you are now to be his servant. Fall back with us, Allison, calls Rindelwald. As he and Halan retreat across the chamber to the farthest possible point for them. Don't stay close to those gates. He leads one who rushes the upside chamber to join your two newly dispossessed companions. Halan meets you in the shoulder crush. You run up to them. Leave you still yourselves for the peril. It seems you will imminently face. Through the 12 portals, the savage shrieks echo wildly off the dome high overhead. Fly at least 24 black winged horned demons. The malevolent creatures immediately soar toward the three of you, and their long black claws poised to tear the flesh from your bones. Don't let them get behind us, shouts Alana, her voice barely audible above the shrieks of the demons that rapidly bear down on you. The first 3 winged demons soar down at you, shrieking wildly as they slash out with their long black talons. A murmur of drying blood is pressed around the fang-filled paws of these savage creatures. They each face one, and I face a third. Death to the heathens. The wailing death cry of the slain demon rises to the air, and the hideous beast collapses into a pool of its own blood at his feet. You leap back from the carcass as the second of the winged fiends soars in and attacks. I thought they were taking care of it. The third demon strikes out of the air and lands before you, striking out at you with his deadly claws. Leap to the side to avoid the first pair of blows before moving in to counter its savage attack. With the third demon dying at your feet, turn to find that Rindle and Horn are struggling to fight off a large number of the winged creatures. Both appear to have been wounded, but stalwartly holding the ground. The concentration of the demon will rise again. Fight the demon. A deep rumble echoes through the chamber, and your eyes immediately drawn to the far wall where a large, swirling black portal has opened. Through the narrow gate steps a towering creature of shadow and stone. The lumbering behemoth stomps into the domed chamber and turns its hollow gaze in your direction. The rogue demon flashes a wicked grin and glides back out of the path of a massive creature as it thunders across the room towards you. Massive blocks of stone appear to make up the skeleton of this nightmarish construct, while broad strands of deep shadow seem to function as its flesh. Andrew, Rendell, and Luan are still locked in desperate struggle against a large number of winged beasts, but there's little you can do to help them now. You realize suddenly that unless you somehow stop this terror, all may be lost. Your heart pounds as a towering stone and shadow construct rapidly bears down on you. Shadow magic. Calling upon your mastery of shadow magic, you watch and makes a satisfaction amazing as the towering shadow beast peels away from the shadows of the wall and steps into the path of approaching behemoth. The constructs make short work of the shadow beast, destroying only a couple of bows, but the massive creature of stone and shadows also suffered damage. The floor shakes as chunks of rock fall from down above as a massive stone and shadow construct draws near. You mutter a prayer as you step forward and bravely engage the towering behemoth. And he's dead! And the shattering ground rises from the shattered remains of the massive stone and shadow construct. The broad shadows that bound the savage behemoth together slither away and meld into the deeper gloom of the chamber, leaving only a tall pile of stones to mark the spot where the giant terror fell. Rendell and Halan arrive at your side, breathless and wounded from their brutal fight with the winged demons. Rendell stares at the remains of the construct but says nothing. Treltuck, no longer enveloped in the shadow orb that held him, suddenly appears at your right and steadily assumes a defensive stand. He seems weary and weak, with the look on his face is one of stern defiance. The demon lord slides across the floor toward the four of you, his tentacle arm to the glittering iron scepter, which he waves around wildly as he approaches. A guttural snarl escapes from his lips as he lashes out in your direction, his tentacles streaking out towards you as he attempts to strike with a gem-tipped scepter. As you steal yourself to face the attack, a long shadow streaks across the floor out of the gloom behind the demon lord. The shadow surges up to its torso and along the barred tendril to the scepter, knocking the ornate iron rod from his grasp. The scepter strikes the floor and clatters across the cold stone, coming to rest just beyond your reach. Instinctively realizing that your only chance of defeating this demon lay with the scepter, you really turn all your efforts in acquiring it. Shadow magic. You hurriedly call upon your mastery of shadow magic, and a long arm of the shadow immediately slithers across the floor and envelopes the scepter. The shadow rapidly retreats and deposits the item at your feet. Your fingers close around the iron scepter. You swiftly leap back, momentarily taking yourself out of the range of the demon's flailing tentacles. You tighten your grip on the iron scepter, hoping and praying that the object will no longer be able to serve its wicked master while it remains in your possession. The demon roars and its terrifying bellow fills the chamber. A broad and tall wave of shadow sweeps out the deep gloom behind your foe and surges across the floor. Rendell, Halan, and Treltuck cry out almost in unison as the rushing shadow waves washes over them, leaving the three motions fall in its wake. Your mind races a deadly wave of shadow rapidly bears down on you. Shadow magic. Calling upon your mastery, you watch the mix of relief and satisfaction the wave shadow surges towards you rapidly into space until there's little more than a small ripple of gloom. You easily step over the ripple as it passes and turns for your fearsome foe. You only step forward to engage the demon lord. Determined to avoid falling prey to any more of his treacherous attacks, you take less than 3 steps toward him, however, and the stabbing pain shoots through your skull. Desperately struggle to fend off the demon's powerful mental attack that is attempting to ravage your psyche. In grand display of mental fortitude, you manage to ward off the damaging effects of the demon's assault on your psyche. The demon lord closes his eyes and his body shudders violently as he undergoes a horrifying transformation. His torso balloons to twice his former size, shredding the silver cloak that formerly concealed it, as his face and his hideously disfigured broadens and takes on an even more fearsome and monstrous appearance. His legs seem to have knelt together, forming a long serpent lower body with that twists into a thick coil beneath him. Four more barbed tentacles extend from his bare, oily, sore-ridden torso, giving him a total of 6 of the nightmarish and deadly limbs. Stretching wide at his now cavernous mouth, the demon tilts his head upward and unleashes a deafening roar that echoes into the dome ceiling above. A bright flash of white light floods the chamber and rapidly fades. In its wake, against the wall behind the demon, stands a firing portal. The surface of the netherworld gate begins to ripple and something is about to emerge. Try the scepter. Roll the iron scepter. Immediately, the black gem transfixed to a shape shimmers brightly, and the flash of white light fills the chamber. In its wake, the portal has vanished. With the 6-part tentacle writhing about wildly, the fearsome demon slithers forward and attacks. It lashes out at you with deadly limbs. It scratches wide its oozing mouth and then unleashes a deafening roar that shakes the dome chamber. Prove yourself, champion. Okay, die. The final blow staggers the demon lord, and the horrid tentacle creature, choking with thick black blood that fills his cavernous mouth, spills out on the edge, slumps to the floor. Step forward, preparing to strike the demon again, but the wounded, riddled corpse suddenly melts into a bright pool of shadow. The surface of the gloomy puddle ripples violently, and a moment later, the view again rises out of it, with its face and torso streaming with the pungent blood. The risen demon lord roars as all 6 of his bodies begin writhing wildly. Hit that scepter again. You hold the scepter. Immediately, the black gem fixed to its tip shimmers brightly. A flash of white light fills the chamber, and in its wake, your spies find the broad, firing portal has opened again against the wall, just behind the demon. The tentacle demon turns its hideous head and shrieks in alarm as it beholds the flaming gates, as if drawn against his will by a powerful unseen force. The demon struggles and slides slowly across the stone floor towards the mouth of the fiery portal. As the demon is drawn back into the portal, one of its 6 tentacles suddenly shoots out toward you. The demon's hideous limbs appear to head straight for the iron scepter. Fortification. The streaking tentacle smashes its barrier. Into a barrier of blue sparkles that hovers in front of you and promptly retreats into the flaming portal. You manage to maintain possession of the iron scepter. The demon lashes out with all 6 of his thick, oozing tentacles in a desperate bid to keep them from being drawn back further into the flaming portal. The monstrous face of the hideous demon is twisting into a terrified grimace, leaving you to believe that a far greater power than able to evoke fear and interesting heart of the demon lord is calling him home. Suddenly overcome by a deep sense of dread, and as the demon is dragged back beyond the threshold, the portal, a broad shadow passes by the mouth of the flaming gate. A chilling whisper echoes through the dome chamber but fades to silence the moment the shadows disappear. Without pounding, you watch as the last of the demon vanishes into the portal. Suddenly, however, without warning, the long tentacle strikes out of the firing gate and shoots across the floor towards you. Leap back narrowly and dodging the tentacle as it shoots across the floor, coming within inches of your right foot. The barbed tentacle reaches Sryth as he slowly attempts to gain his feet. Swiftly wraps himself around his torso. Sryth cries out in alarm and struggles to free himself from the demon's grip, but is no match for the otherworldly might against which he vies. With a sickening, slithering sound, the tentacle rapidly retreats into the flame-wreathed portal, dragging Sryth with it. Before dismissing the void, Sryth turns his gaze earnestly to speak, but he's gone before he can utter a single word. Only minutes later, the base of the portal silently closes. This sucks. A heavy silence hangs in the dome chamber. Following the closing of the portal, fearing the worst, you turn to look upon your companions who fell beneath the web of shadow that swept around the room, and your heart leaps in your sweet soul. You discover all 4 of them slowly regaining their feet. You rush over and help steady Rindle as he stands up. He places his hand on your shoulder and smiles weakly. 2 of you then help her on to her feet. Only a few yards away, both Adriska and Priam are now standing finally back on their feet after the savage blow suffered at the hands of the demon lord. Rindle mutters a few words and places a hand over Lan. Almost at once, color returns to her face, and her feet seem steadier. He then reaches over, rests his right hand on your shoulder, and immediately the warmth of healing touches. His healing touch cautious of you. Adriska, whose upper torso bears a broad, nasty-looking walks over and stands at your side. Priam lips up just behind you and stoops to examine a deep cut running up the side of his leg. Fine state we're in, cries Priam, smirking. You'll lie, Trail Talk gave me this one. I'm not soon want to tangle with him again. Look at the rest of you, too. Fine state. Keep up Priyan's mission of Trail Talk. You relate to your companions as fate. Renewal bows his head, and the rest of you follow suit, offering you a silent prayer on behalf of your departed comrade. You feel overwhelming sense of relief to once again be standing in the company of your companions, each of them, as you would hope you always remember them as friends and allies instead of deadly enemies. Adriska's next word addressed the same concern, and break what had been a few moments of uncomfortable silence. It's nice to see that we're all acting as we should. Just looking around at you, I was growing a bit tired of having to fight off the lot of you every time I turned my head. No word all, I suppose, right? Ron, it was you or Rendell who... Oh, bother, never mind any of that. The next several minutes, few words were exchanged. If I were you, Adriska in particular seems to still be in awe of all that had just transpired in this chamber. Stand staring at your gloomy surroundings as if you had expected the demons and minions to suddenly reappear. Anna steps over to where the flaming ring portal stood only a few seconds ago. She carefully examines the wall and the floor before turning around and heading back to where the rest of you stand. It's not over yet, Rendell, his tone grave. The demon's gone, but what happened here is still not so forgotten. There's still much to be done, but let's not dwell on that for the moment. Let's lend praise to the very reason we're all still alive. We owe more than we can ever hope to repay, Allison. Rendell's word comes to a surprise. It's immediately followed by a loud, heartfelt accolades of the companions. The four of them meet you and shoulder across the you repeatedly for your valor and for ultimately sending a demon down to defeat and out of this world, even if its fate remains unclear. Graciously accept praise, but quickly return the justice of admiration and gratitude. Priyan and Driscoll both seem particularly thrilled when you make mention of the timely arrival and how thankful you were to find them once again on your side. That strange fellow Sryth, said Priyan. He was the one who broke the spell that was over us. That glowing green gem. Strange man for strange business, to be sure. I have to believe it was he who gave us the magic to start with, but I don't think I have any of it left, though. Real pity. And neither do I, said Richard, confirming that he and Priyan have not been left with any ability to wield shadow magic, though it's certainly just as well. Very, very quiet. All right. Do you think it isn't over, Renduel? Asked Priyan. Not for me, replies Renduel. Well, it is over for me, said Driscoll, sighing. I'm not quite well cut out for all this demon battling, if you can figure it. Without that nifty shadow magic, I'm afraid I'll have to stick to trolls and goblins. My worsening back, I'll leave it for goblins for now. Renewal laughs and slaps his long-time friend on the shoulder. Looked a bit bleak for a while there, but here we all are again alive, and so it looks. No worse off in the end, really. I think, considering all that we've been through, we ought to be just about the luckiest lot that ever lived. Lucky, said Alon, frowning. Though honestly, Jess, I'd prefer to think that we made the most of our own luck. More than a little inclined to agree with her. It is here we say our farewells, announced Rendell suddenly, glancing at Alon, who moves at the center at his side. I must not tarry here, for there's still a silver hope that Master Sryth yet lives. My tentacle foe, in his own cruel fashion, made plain. I'll not leave him to suffer such a fate, even though to his dying breath he cannot speak out against my intentions. Alon nods. He says that she will be going with Renewal, and the two of them must best rescue the man who served as their mentor and friend. There is another friend who, if alive, is deserving of what it took we might be able to make on his behalf, said Renewal. Things hidden these long centuries are now clear enough. I will not cast or carry blame any longer. If Trailthawk leaves, he must not think we've abandoned him even at the very end. As if he's read your thoughts, Renewal shakes his head and places his hand on your shoulder. Your place is here, my friend. He says one last thing this world needs in such uncertain ages, to lose she who is perhaps its greatest hero. Thank you. There is much you have yet to do here, or that there can be no doubt. I, on the other hand, have been around for just a bit too long. A solemn or bitter mood hangs over the five of you as you speak quietly together, each of you realizing that this parting may indeed prove final. As Renduel speaks at length to Driscoll and Priyan, Halan moves up to your sides. Do you remember the pheasant festival in Hapspring? She asked. You suddenly recall passing the festival on your way to Salinas. It was there you first encountered Earth and the guys of a young sandy-haired lad. Seamus Finnegan. I remembered wondering about looking for provisions, walking by a fort content to toss metal rings and laugh at crude jokes and listen to the funny tales of half-drunk minstrel. I remember thinking that despite all the power I've acquired in a lifetime devoted to this art, I just remember wishing I was one of them instead of all this. Not sure that who I am is me, Allison. I'm not saying I wanted to be. Sounds quite silly, I know, but there it is. Lon looks over her shoulder to where Rendell and speaking with just went Priyan, and she then leans closer and whispers, "Don't let it control you," she says. "It will try. You must not let it. You know of what that which I speak. I will try. It will try, and it will never cease. You must never relent." Her words sends a chill through you, but he says no malice in them. He says only trusted friend imparting to a serious and rather cryptic warning. As you, Priyan and Nerdjiska are preparing to depart, Rendell strides up and hands you his crimson tabard. May the tabard and crest serve you well. You, its new leader, Allison, I fully expect that you will uphold our good name, if not better it. Thanks, Sky. As tactfully as you can, you attempt to refuse Rendell's tabard, telling him that either Priyan or Driscoll should take his place as leader of Silver Crest. He shakes his head in response. They both agree that it should be you, he says, turning to look at Driscoll and Priyan, who nod their consent. It's about time we had someone with a bit less grey to lead us, said Driscoll, smirking. Then it's perfectly settled, said Priyan. I'll be honored to serve under your leadership, Allison. Well done, Allison, says Lon, smiling. See if you can't teach these two old goblins a few tricks of the trade. One among us is quite as young as we like to be, I'd wager, said Driscoll, casting a glance around everyone, but there's something about sending a demon out of the world that does wonders to restore one's sense of youth. Rendell laughs. Priyan smirks. Halan rolls her eyes. Jeez. After only a few moments. I did not know this was going to go until past 45 minutes. After only a few moments, it's time to part ways with Rendell and Halan. You were just going to Priyan bid their brave pair a fair sad farewell and wish them luck and safety in the perilous endeavor that lies ahead. And I wish the three of you luck as well, said Rendell. You may find yet find remains of our enemy shadow, perhaps, in unexpected places. I pray that our beloved world has seen the last wonders. Ajiska and Priyan step up to Rendell and each in turn meet their long-time friend and leader in a solemn shoulder cross. They then turn and repeat the gesture with Halan. You do the same. The opportunity should arise, said Rendell, thoughtfully sharpening his head. See if you can somehow send my sincere apology to Teak, and see if he might not think about again downing the tabard. He's a good man, I say, and a good man by all measure. Tell him I was wrong. Take care, Allison, said Halan as the three of you prepared to depart. If I'm ever back this way, well, I'll try to see if I can cross paths with you. I like nothing more. Farewell. Rendell closes his eyes and mushes. With his left hand, his entire body trembles and his eyes open. He gives a disconcerted sigh. He repeats the procedure, and this time the crackle of fire fills the dome chamber as a wide flame in the portal opens against the wall. It's nearly identical to the portal in which the demon lord and Trailtalk were drawn. Alana steps toward the portal and turns to face you all one last time as she arrives at its threshold. She nods and waves, and steps into the fiery vortex and is lost from sight. Rendell exhales sharply and strides into the portal. Like Alana before him, he turns and nods through you and takes one last look around at the gloomy dome chamber as if it's the last view he will ever have of this world. Someday, he says in a low voice, shifting his gaze to each of you in turn. Someday again for certain. With his final words still ringing in his ears, Rendell steps into the portal and disappears. The fiery Neville gate closes silently behind him. Whew. It is with a heavy heart, and together with the Driscoll and Priyan, that you make your way out of the ruined temple and begin the steep and arduous climb up the ravine. The three of you exchange no words until at last you stand on the lip of the valley, far above the remains of the temple. Nothing stirs below but a large tranquility of the scene. There's little to lighten your mood. Somewhere in the shadow of the ancient, crumbling structure, two friends have been left behind, and despite Rendell's parting sentiment, you do not think you will ever see them again. You pray, however, that this will not prove true. Well, what a fix, said Priyan, turning away from the ravine as he adjusts his equipment. The fact that the three of us are still standing here together after all that's transpired is beyond all fortune. I'd offer my profound thanks again, Allison, but I don't think you tired of hearing. You jokingly show Priyan that you're not, and he smirks and shakes his head before stepping forward and meeting you shoulder across. Then again, you have it. It's laughing a pity, though, that this whole story is likely to go untold, I mean, who would believe it? And isn't it for the best, after all? I'd have preferred not to ever have learned any of it myself. If they haven't yet turned the old hall back into a tavern, you at least have that to return to, said Driscoll. Remember, we left the place in quite a state, but I faced the demon itself to get back in front of our old hearth with the flag in it had nothing to do for a month or two. The voices of your companions, coupled with the gravity of all that's transpired here, causes a flow of emotion to well up within you. You pray for Rendell and Halan and safety rise up for the band of the Silver Crest in memory of your departed friend. Know that you know him to stand for. Realizing that the long road lies ahead and no further desire to linger here, you push such thoughts out of your mind and prepare to set off with your companions on the trek home. As the three of you move down the forest path toward the village of Perstan, curious as to what you might encounter there, your thoughts drift back to Driscoll's comments regarding the press headquarters near the hut. At this very moment, nothing else sounds quite as good as that. And I guess that's the end of it, so that's why it was so long. But next is like a reward. Hey, so thanks so much for hanging out and joining me. In the next episode, we'll see what the reward is for finishing this proving ground. Thanks so much again. You know what I'm going to say. Peace.